Hi, welcome back to our channel. My name is Dave. On today's episode, we're going to discuss flying from Los Angeles International Airport all the way to Mactan International Airport in Cebu, Philippines. So we took a domestic flight, and when we landed, we departed out of Terminal 1 at Los Angeles International Airport. We went to Carousel 3 and gathered up our bags, and then after that, we walked outside to the ground transportation. Once outside, we waited for a blue shuttle bus, which is a free shuttle bus that takes you around to all the different terminals at LAX, and it's called Connections, and it's a blue bus. So we hopped on that bus, and it took us to the Tom Bradley International or Terminal B, and once it got us there, we unloaded our luggage and dragged it inside. Once inside, we took an immediate left to the elevators. We took the elevator up to level 3. Once we got up to level 3, which is ticketing, we sat in some chairs for a few hours and waited until the ticketing for Philippine Airlines opened up. So after about a 3-hour wait, we asked if we could stand in line. We started noticing people gathering in line at the ticket counter for Philippine Airlines, and they said that we could, and that they usually open from anywhere from 6:30 to about 7:30 p.m. And so we fell in line, we got in line, and it was almost 7 p.m. that they started, that they all came out. The representatives for Philippine Airlines came out, and they opened the ticketing windows, and the line started moving. We waited in line when they opened up the ticketing windows. We waited about 35 to 40 minutes, and then when we got to the front of the line, we were greeted by a young lady representative who took our temperatures to make sure that we weren't running a fever, and then also handed us a slip of paper that gave us steps of some things that we should do. So the 3 steps were, first we had to register with Mactan International Airport, or MCIA, to get our swab test barcode information. And the next step on that slip of paper was to obtain a quarantine hotel for 10 days and 9 nights. And then lastly, we also had to fill out a locator form. And so those were the 3 steps that we had to do. So once a window opened up, which was about a minute later after greeting the representative in the line with Philippine Airlines, we got ushered up to a window. A nice lady immediately asked for both of our passports. She looked them over and was able to locate us in the system that we had tickets. And after that, she needed to confirm that we were married under the Balikbayan program, and so she asked for our original marriage certificate, which we handed her. And she took a few minutes, about 5 minutes, to check over all the documents. She also made copies of the documents, and then she came back, and then she handed us the locator form to fill out. Which we could fill that out, and then after that, she printed up our boarding passes. We checked in our bag, and also put tags on our carry-on luggage as well, and we were directed to go through the TSA screening. Some additional information to know is that they also do a document check to make sure that you also have that quarantine hotel booked. Like I said, it's 10 days and 9 nights, as well as to make sure that you have registered with MCIA, the Mactan International Airport, and that's done. So they do that document check as well. Also, if you're a returning Filipino, a former Filipino, you either bring your expired passport or a copy of your birth certificate from the Philippines. So once we were done with our document check and we got our airline tickets and our bags checked in and everything, then it was just the normal process of simply going up. Then we went up to level 4 to TSA screening, and it was just as you would expect with any TSA screening process. We met up with the TSA officer who verified our passports and our airline tickets, and just made sure that they were legitimate and our identities matched with the airline tickets. And then we emptied out our pockets and took out any liquids and our laptops and stuff like that, and ran our carry-on bags and everything through the x-rays. Then we went through the body scanner. Then on the other end, we collected all of our things and put on our shoes, and it's pretty much straightforward. Once you get out of TSA screening, it then just opens up right into the main terminal there, the Terminal B, with all the gates, as well as all the restaurants and the duty-free stores in which you don't have to pay any taxes, and you can buy goods to take overseas and to other countries and whatnot. And that was pretty much it. So once we were in the main terminal, we had to get to gate 205. So we ended up taking an elevator, and there's signs for it that for the 200 gates, but we ended up taking an elevator down to level 1. And once we got down to level 1, there was this long walkway, which they call a tunnel, and it takes about 15 minutes to walk. It's pretty long. They do have moving sidewalks, which you can just basically stand still, and the sidewalks will move and carry you along. There's like about 3 of them, and they do have these free motorized carts with a driver that will drive you actually all the way to your gate if you're someone that doesn't like to walk, or you're elderly or disabled. You do have that option as well, but we ended up walking it, and basically this is a new addition onto the Tom Bradley International. It's called the West Gates, so it's a new addition with a bunch more gates, and recently Philippine Airlines has been utilizing that region, that new addition. So basically we took ourselves about 15 minutes to get from that point all the way to these escalators. We went up about 2 escalators, so I think it was about level 4, and then did a little bit more walking, another 4 or so minutes worth of walking, and then we finally got to gate 205, which was designated for a Philippine Airlines flight from LAX to Cebu direct. So we were there early. I think we waited about 3 hours, and then over time people started showing up, and also seeing people getting dropped off by those motorized carts, and just pretty much waiting, and just waiting. And there's on that level there isn't a whole lot of anything. There's probably a few vending machines. I didn't see any restaurants or anything. So it's kind of out a ways, and again, it's a new addition. But our flight was pushed back an hour. I think there was some construction or something, either at LAX or at Cebu International, Mactan Cebu International. But basically, about an hour before boarding, they had everybody just line up, and they by letter name, by group letter, and they pretty much just called everybody up, and when your letter was called, you started heading to the little gate representatives. They would just basically check your passport and then scan your ticket in, and you were good to go to walk onto the plane. And then once you got into the plane, I pretty much, they helped you find your seat, and yeah, most people were in there wearing face masks and even face shields, even though they didn't really seem to enforce the face shields, especially once people were able to take them off while eating and even sleeping. They didn't really enforce them. So about 2 hours before landing, and the flight overall was about 15 hours. It was a little bit slower because of weather, but those 2 hours before landing, they gave us several films that had to be filled out before we deboarded the plane. The forms were, there was a health declaration form, there was a customs form, there was an immigration form, and then there was a consent to undertaking form. And so there's just several forms, and we had to fill them out before the plane landed. Once the plane landed, everybody deboarded as normal, and we took all the forms with us. And then as we left out of the gate, they directed us to a big room with a bunch of chairs in it, and everybody sat down in the chairs. With our carry-ons and everything, we all sat down and we had a brief speech by an officer with the Bureau of Quarantine, and basically he was just talking about the quarantine process, just kind of giving us what the latest process was, as well as the procedures for going through the airport, everything from registering for your swab test there at the airport, as well as verifying your quarantine hotel, to picking up your bags and then going through customs, and then arranging your transportation to the hotel. So it basically was just a rundown. And then shortly after that, he started to send people out of the room. So first he asked for those people that were partially vaccinated, as well as people that were unvaccinated. The unvaccinated people got to leave first, and then all the vaccinated people, he then asked for who was vaccinated in the Philippines. He had them wait. The people that were vaccinated and coming from non-green countries, basically coming from the yellow countries, which in our case we were coming from the U.S., we got to go next. And he stressed that our quarantine was 10 days. And then so we ended up leaving to go through the process of doing all those things that we had to do before we could leave the airport. Our first thing was the verification process. So we spoke with a representative with the Bureau of Quarantine. They look at our passport, and they check to see if that we have a quarantine hotel, and that we have registered with MCIA with the barcode, and they just make sure all that's in good order, and then they generated 3 barcodes. They printed out 3 barcodes for us after scanning the one that we presented to them, the printout, and they put all 3, or at least 2 of them on the back of our passports, and then the one of them is used to label for the swab test. And then they also asked where our final destination was. So we said our final destination was in Bajan with my wife's parents. And so after that, they directed us to immigration. Immigration again looked at our passports, and then also checked our marriage certificate. So we presented with our original marriage certificate. My wife got a stamp that didn't have an end date on it in her passport. I got a stamp that, since I'm under the Balikbayan program, I can stay 1 full year. So after we got done with immigration, it was time to go off to swabbing. And in the swabbing area, they have a few booths set up, and they have a representative that will direct you to one of the booths when it opens up, and you simply sit down, you hand them your passport that has the barcodes on it. They take one of the barcodes they use on the vial, and they just verify, your information matches up with your passport and everything, and then you stick your face through the little hole, and then they'll take a couple swabs. They'll put one swab in the back of your mouth and swab it, and they'll take another swab and they'll put that in your nose just slightly, and it only tickles a little bit. And then they also what was interesting is they put an orange sticker on your face shield, and I suppose that means that you've been swabbed, that you've gone through swabbing, and you're good to go on to the next part. Which, once we were done with that, we went off to the Department of Tourism. We met with a representative who helped us get our luggage. And what was neat is all the luggage, all the checked bags were all lined up in several neat rows. So he helped us find our our couple of our bags, and then he put those bags along with our check bags on a cart. Once we gathered up our luggage, he had us fill out a little slip of our name, contact information, and what quarantine hotel we were staying with. And then we sat down for about 35 minutes, and then finally they called our name up. We went with their representative who took our luggage to the x-ray machine over by customs.
Carry-on.
And they only had us do our carry-on bags through the x-ray machine. And then when those bags came out, we were instructed to drop off our customs form in a little basket nearby. When that was done, we stood for a few minutes. With another representative until our driver came around. Once our driver came around, we were instructed to then take the cart with our representative outside, and they helped us load the luggage into the trunk, and then our driver took us to the quarantine hotel. It was about a 40-minute or so drive, but once we got to the hotel, we simply just checked in, and a bellman with a cart helped us unload our luggage, and they took us up to our room. And so now we're on day 7. We're going into the evening of the 7th, and we had our swab test that happened at 8:30 this morning. What was nice is they call you a few minutes before the lab technician shows up. And then the lab technician shows up. Again, you show them the passport, and they grab one of the barcodes off the passport to put on the vials. Again, they swab the back of your throat, and again, they swab your nose. This time they use a little different swab. It went a little bit more farther up, so it's a little bit of a light pinch. Probably for some people, it doesn't even bother you, but nothing too bad. It's a little bit more thorough of a nasal swab. But other than that, it was real quick and easy, and they were gone. And then
chin up, sir, a little. You start to relax and don't move. Thank you. We're done.
So if you're going under the Balikbayan program, one of the biggest things to remember is to bring that original marriage certificate. It has to be an original, and make sure you have that. Also, common sense, make sure you have your passports and they're not expired. And then also, if you're a former Filipino, to make sure that you bring either your expired passport or at least a birth certificate, which can be a copy. It does not have to be an original copy. The other big thing to do is make sure that your quarantine hotel for 10 days and 9 nights is booked. Making sure that you also register with MCIA, Mactan International Airport, several days before your flight. And making sure that's all done, as well as having copies of everything, especially having copies of those barcodes from your MCIA registration, and having having everything that's easily accessible will make things a lot quicker and simple. And then there's also the Trace app that you want to download, create a profile, and log in. According to Philippine Airlines, you're supposed to have it. However, we've heard a lot of people and stories, as well as ourselves, they did not check that. But it's still a good idea to do it, just in case you never. And I think that's it. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a like, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. So we took a domestic flight into...
No.